Hello and welcome to this edition of Beyond the Politics, a regular examination of the events happening right here in the Quinte region and the people who work so hard behind the scenes to make it all happen. I'm your host, Paul Martin. Joining me, two councillors from Belleville, which has been in the spotlight for so many reasons, so many things to talk about this week. From Ward 1, Barb Enright-Miller, and from Ward 2, Councillor Paul Carr.
Thanks for having me.
So before we get started, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention that a great Canadian passed away last week. The 18th Prime Minister of Canada, Brian Mulroney, passed away at the age of 84 last Thursday. Mulroney had an extensive period and the largest Conservative win in the history of Canada with more than 200 seats, helped establish much of the country we establish today with introductions of things like the loonie and the GST under his time, and was a central figure around the world in things like fighting for social justice in South Africa and establishing some of our first green initiatives, including an acid rain treaty with the United States. So here at Beyond the Politics, we say a heartfelt thank you to the Mulroney family and as well our condolences on the passing of Brian Mulroney. Further to that, another great Conservative came through last week, and that was Premier Doug Ford. So let's talk about the Premier's visit. Of course, the Premier came through to announce $1.2+ million under the housing starts. So, Paul, what does this mean? For people who aren't familiar with the background to this, can you sort of lead it through it from what set the stage for it to this announcement that happened last week?
Yeah, so the provincial government set forth a number of pieces of legislation for housing, and then set targets for municipalities over 50,000 population-wise. And if you met your target, you were provided with some infrastructure fund. And if you're 80% of your target, you would get a little less. And then if you're over your target, which we were, we got a little bit more.
So, will this do anything for affordability? One of the things we always talk about housing, and one thing that the province and the federal government also came up with, was shortage of supply drives up demand, drives up cost. There are other factors like interest rates. But if we build these new houses, and of course develop the whole secondary plan, do you have hopes that the affordability of housing in Belleville will be affected as a result?
Well, we sure hope so, because what the proposed build is a multi-factor. There's going to be high-rise, low-rise townhomes, and I mean that's the goal, is to get some affordable housing on the marketplace for people to finally be able to afford as interest rates come down. There's a lot of building that will be going on over the next few years, so yes, the target is to get affordable housing. What that looks like exactly, we will see once we get to that table and find out with the developers, but yes, the goal is affordable housing, because we sure are needing it.
Mm-hmm. Now, Paul, actually, in my own backyard in Kenneth Mill Estates, they just put up the first multi-residential building. I actually was going up for walks, and every day it seemed like more was going up. They were using kind of a quick pouring concrete to be able to establish the exterior walls a little bit faster. Is that a sign of things to come, even in some of our higher scale subdivisions? Well,
I got to hand it to the Stakos group and Nick Stakos. This is new technology, actually. Mm-hmm. It's not really a quick pour as much as it is that it's poured somewhere else, and it's actually in a factory in Woodstock. And it's all pre-designed and pre-constructed there, and it's brought in on tractor trailer, almost looking like a filing cabinet system, if you will. And the crane comes and know where to put piece A into piece B, and then it's a quick put together. So that building there went up, I think, in 15 weeks, which is phenomenal. So the expedited fashion in which that can go up and closed in, then they can work on the inside, well protected, and that'll be on the market sooner than later. So that kind of technology is fantastic, and it's good to see a local builder try this out, and hopefully others are watching and see the success and do the same, and that gets things moving a little bit quicker for sure.
Barb, do you see that we need, how much is this wall showing that we need to look at different things? I mean, not that long ago that subdivision had no multi-unit at all. Now it has this, and it went up very quickly using a new technology. Is this just a sign that we're starting to embrace some of the things that might make an impact more quickly?
Absolutely. It all boils down to dollars and cents, right? And builders have to build and make a profit. And if they can come up with new technology that gets them there faster, cheaper, that's going to reflect back to the marketplace when people are buying these homes. So we have to try everything we can in their toolbox. And as Councillor Carr said, this is a way to go, Stakos, for trying this out, and we'll be waiting to see how it works for them.
But it was something. And then it was a matter of, well, where do we go from there? So with that in place, and not necessarily directly addressing either emergency workers or those two projects, there was still the question of where do we go? So in terms of the two projects that have been discussed, the bridge, which is a wraparound service for homelessness and mental illness that will be located at the former banquet center. Let's start with that. How much of a difference can that project make? Because again, for people not familiar with it, it'd be taking basically the things that are happening in terms of meal programs at Bridge Street United Church, moving those in, and also having services with people at the very least who would be experts in terms of referrals, restreaming, and getting people to help as they're coming through the door every day. How much of a difference can that project make?
So first, I just want to address the $214,000 that
Yes.
was announced. That was actually a CMHA application that was submitted well before this emergency. So this wasn't a response to what was occurring here, but it was just timed, I guess, that way. But it was actually a previous application. But getting back to your question, where do we go from here? Well, obviously the bridge is a critical service. It's outgrown its location. That's really the crux of the matter for Bridge Street United Church. They just do not have the capacity based on the need that's coming through their front door to be able to manage that many people. So it's a simple infrastructure issue, quite frankly. But in addition to that, with the proper space, you can have outside agencies come in and provide connection. That's the biggest thing is that knowing where the service is, how to get to it, how to access it, that's where that comes into play. And it's important that those agencies work together. For too long, agencies are doing great work, but they're doing it in silos. And you have to have a much more integrated approach. And so having everybody under one roof or accessing everybody under one roof allows for a little bit more seamless referral process. The other thing that's a big component is the fact that the city needs a warming center location. And we've used the old police headquarters, but that's going over to Habitat. That building will be coming down soon. And so the city's in desperate need of a location for a warming center, which this would include as well. So it's really about capacity and how they can ultimately use the services to the best degree possible.
Now, Barb, as Councillor Carr said, this would also have additional services. So, I mean, Bridge Street East does important work in terms of feeding people, but they don't have the capacity, they don't have the space, and they can't bring in experts who are funded to be able to provide other assistance. This would have that. In your mind, is that going to make a big difference?
I really think it will. Like the wraparound services that the hub will offer that Bridge Street can't. You need to take each and every individual and assess them, because they're not all the same, right? How they got there is not all the same. So really, if we have the ability to assess each person as they come through the door and get them the help they need and get them back into society, we're going to lose some for sure, but the lion's share of them, if we can do that for each of our homeless folks, and that's what the hub will be all about. It's not the silver bullet. It's not the end all and be all, because if we had that answer, we wouldn't be talking about it, right? But it's certainly going to help, and it's going to alleviate the Bridge Street problem we have now, and give maybe Bridge Street back their church. And it can't hurt. We have to try something, and this is our plan.
We just have a couple minutes for the break, and we could talk about this all day because infrastructure and the budget are important. But there are two big changes coming up in the city in the near future. Of course, we heard last week that CEO Rod Bové, after 5 years in the big chair and decades with the city, is going to be retiring, and Clerk Matt McDonald is going to be taking over. Councillor Enright-Miller, your thoughts on that?
Oh, Rod Bové has done a fabulous job. I haven't known him all that many years, but fabulous job for the city of Belleville. It's a huge job, and we will certainly miss him. Now, Matt taking over is the best case scenario that we could have. Matt is talented, and he brings a whole new vision to the table of CAO, and he shared some of that vision with us, and we're very excited for that. But two great fellows, and they'll very well respected at the city of Belleville, and Matt will have everybody's respect with everybody he's worked with thus far. He's very worn in the fabric of the city hall, and he certainly knows all aspects of what happens down at City Hall. So great choice.
Councillor Carr, your thoughts especially on Bové, who you've seen through his entire progression at City Hall.
Yeah, he's there a lot longer than I was, that's for sure. Yeah, I remember my first term. Mr. Bové was in the planning department and heading up that as a manager, and then on as a director of engineering development services and what have you, and then also CAO. He certainly has a lot of institutional knowledge, and some of that knowledge will be walking out the door when he retires. And so, so I can't say enough in terms of his contribution to the city and to the local government for sure. But in addition to his replacement with Mr. McDonald, there's a good transfer of knowledge as well, in that Mr. McDonald has a lot of institutional knowledge as it relates to the city. So the continuity, I think, in leadership is critical. And so, I think council saw that, and if we're going to lose somebody to retirement with a lot of knowledge, we should bring somebody in that can step in and not miss a beat. And I think we've found that. And so, again, congratulations to Mr. Bove for his career and his contributions to the city. And we're wishing Mr. McDonald all the best.
And lastly, of course, a replacement hasn't been announced yet, but we do know that Police Chief Mike Callahan will also be retiring, and in the fairly near future. He's been a central figure in the city through a very difficult period of time. The current overdose crisis, the moving into the new building, the COVID. I mean, it's been a challenging time to be a police officer and to be a police chief in Belleville. How much will he be missed, and what can you say about his service?
Oh, Mike will be so missed. Mike is just such a caring person. For that role, the police chief of the city of Belleville, it's a huge role to undertake. And I think you would think that the emergency services would work in silos, and it eliminated that. And he's so engaged with city council and keeps us abreast of what's going on in the city. And I think his men and women that work under him are just, they just think so much of him. So it's going to be tough shoes to fill, that's for sure.
Paul?
Yeah, he's got a long, distinguished career for sure in policing, not just in our community, but coming here as and then taking on a leadership role, and he'll say his home community, obviously has to be rewarding, but difficult at times for sure. And so he's done a commendable job, and certainly wish him all the best in retirement. And
then there's going to be a big regional event, but the last minute, Paul, Quinte International Air Show, something we're all going to be looking forward to. It's in Quinte West, it's at CFB Trenton, but certainly Belleville plays a big role in this in terms of celebrating it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. It's been a while, and I enjoy planes, so the kid in me will come out for sure. And I actually texted a friend just the other day. I said, okay, put this in your calendar now. We're going to be involved both days for sure. So it's great for our community. We have a lot of armed forces personnel that live in the city of Belleville proper. And so celebrating the work that they do on the front lines, protecting our country, providing humanitarian support across the world, that needs to be celebrated. And with the equipment that they use and everything else that they have is fantastic. So to be able to highlight and celebrate that and give them recognition is going to be great.
That's something we're all going to be looking forward to. This has been a Belleville-centered, but of course, Quinte Regional appreciative edition of Beyond the Politics.